From the Chicago Sun-Times newsroom, I'm Natasha Korecki, and this is Off Message, our weekly political talk show where we give you an insider's look at some of the biggest political stories of the week. Joining me today is editorial writer Kate Grossman, our wonderful columnist Neil Steinberg, and also from Springfield is our bureau chief Dave McKinney. It's been another good week for Bruce Rauner, and now that the caps have come off, who ends up benefiting but the rich guy?
Well, you look at what the history is here in Illinois. We've had a whole succession of these millionaire self-funders. You talk about Andy McKenna, you talk about Quinn, you talk about Blair Hull, on and on and on. And this list of candidates, they spend money like crazy, but they don't relate to voters. And I think that's the real challenge here for Rauner. He picked up the Palatine Township Republican Organization yesterday.
How much does something like that really help, though?
Well, you're talking about a core group of voters in a Republican primary that may be like 500,000 or 600,000 or 700,000 people. And if he can string together enough of these township organizations, enough of the downstate county organizations, then it means something. But he's got to do that before this money is going to mean anything.
The Oberweis lesson is you can't buy a personality. You can bring all this money in it, and if there's nothing there, even the best political handlers can't.
But is there something there with Rauner?
I've met Rauner. He cleans up well. He seems like he can open his mouth and form words. And so on that level, I think the potential for him to really steamroll is there because of the money and because he's unknown.
The question I wonder is if he succeeds in the Republican contest, how's he going to do against Quinn money-wise? What's your sense of how Quinn will be able to match up with him?
Well, I think Rauner is always going to be okay with money, but I wonder, going back to some of the stuff Dave was saying, to mobilize some of the more conservative part of the party to come out and vote for you. Can Rauner do that? He is not conservative enough, many view. And then you've got people like Kirk Dillard, who is lurching right. He was at that rally, the anti-same-sex marriage rally in Springfield, and some people were wondering, Rauner did not show up for that. Dan Rutherford did not show up for that.
Is that going to mobilize the crazed far-right base and get them to go out and vigorously work? Or is it going to sort of kick the stops out from under them and paralyze them, thinking, this is done, we're not going to drag the state back into the Neolithic with us? And so that'll be interesting to see which direction
Well, that's,
it goes.
A perfect segue. Another big story this week in politics, same-sex marriage becoming the law of the land.
And I'm going to sign this bill right now.
The only statewide Republican to speak at this event was Judy Bar Topinka.
I am available to be a flower girl, and I'll even waive the fee.
Is the absence of any other major Republican there, is that going to hurt the Republicans?
Clearly, the candidates don't think it's to their advantage. Gay marriage passed, and it's historic, but it didn't. It only passed by 1 or 2 votes.
There's no career path to the Republicans being the anti-gay party, even if it's 2 or 3 or 4% of the vote. You can't win elections by writing off 10% of the population because you're against their basic civil rights.
Well, and likewise, they're not going to win being the pro-gay marriage
candidate. No, that's already been taken by the Democrats.
Yeah.
But
Well, certainly there have been Republicans who have been moderated on the issue, such as Mark Kirk. But going back to there is a segment of the population that is very against this. Dave, you were covering something very different this week. Was that the first time you've ever attended an exorcism?
Well, yeah, I try to do it, every summer if I can. This was the reaction from the Catholic bishop here in Springfield, Thomas Paprocki.
What exactly happens at an exorcism, and why was he doing this?
He thought that same-sex marriage, its roots are with the devil, and that there was a need to sort of cleanse the spirit, I guess, of Illinois. The ceremony lasted about an hour. It was in a beautiful Catholic church. Packed probably with 500 or 600 or 700 people, and we were hearing "Be gone, Satan" and things like that in Latin, and it was surreal, and it was a very unusual ceremony, unprecedented. The Catholic Church, any church, going to this extent to protest something that's happening in government. We're just not accustomed to seeing that.
Well, we could probably talk about exorcisms for some time, but let's not forget the notable quote of the week. Mine is from Rahm Emanuel. He spoke at the same-sex marriage ceremony. "There is no straight or gay marriage. From now on, there is only marriage in Illinois." And Kate, do you have something this week?
I do. Mine is a 50-year-old quote. Neil did a great column where he took us inside the UPI broadcast office here in Chicago on the day that that Kennedy was killed. Flash, President dead, is 50 years later, it's still such a part of like the American consciousness.
Yeah.
Toni Preckwinkle got up and basically said, I'm a history teacher, and this is, and she put the same-sex marriage in the line of history. And I think that's the only way this is going to be looked at someday.
As a history teacher, I firmly believe that marriage equality is the civil rights issue of our time.
Saving the best for last, Dave McKinney, what do you got for us this week?
Pat Brocky is going to great lengths to say that what was happening yesterday was really only a minor exorcism. And so he said, I'm not saying that anyone involved in the redefinition of marriage is possessed by the devil, which, if that were the case, it would require the remedy of a major exorcism. So, a major exorcism, that's on my to-do list.
Maybe next year. With that, thank you to our guests, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.